Well, hello and greetings from sunny Sydney. Sydney, it's a little hamlet on the east coast of Australia. Australia's a huge landmass, a little bit north of Antarctica. If you travel north, you can't really miss it unless you start from the wrong side. Great little city, lots going on, lovely place to live. All you got to do is grab yourself a piece of land, drive off the Aborigines, slaughter a few thousand. Yeah, and look, no problem, you've got yourself a home. And remember that if you speak English, then God is on your side. Now, I'm Professor Lloyd Barnett. Some people pronounce it Barnett, but it's Barnett. Otherwise, I'm known as Kelly Wild. So, you can just call me Kelly. Now, I'm here tonight to discuss religion, would you believe? Yes. And I'm going to start off with, not with Adam and Eve, we'll do that later on. It's already been done to death, but we'll do that later on. I'm going to talk tonight about Abraham. Who the fuck is that? Well, he says his name's Professor Lloyd Barnett. Never heard of him. Can't say I had, really. I thought he said his name was Kelly Wild. Well, I guess you take your pick. And why is he dressed up like a poofter? Yeah, well, he might not be a poofter, as you so crudely put it. What is he then? He could be one of those, transvestite sort of people. Yeah, right. Fucking poofter. Now, there seems to be some confusion about my identity. Some people seem to think that I'm Andy Warhol. I'm not Andy Warhol. I did visit his club, The Factory in New York, a few times. In fact, I was part of a group called Trailer Trash. We cut a couple of discs, but they went nowhere. He was good enough to lend me one of his wigs. This is one of Andy Warhol's favourite wigs. So, but that's where the association ends. Other people seem to think that I'm Debbie Harry. I'm not Debbie Harry, no. I understand the confusion. I'm almost as gorgeous as Debbie Harry, but no, I'm just plain old Kelly Wild. Now, why would I start with Abraham rather than some other clever dude, the reason I'm starting with Abraham is because he was the guy who kicked the whole Judeo-Christian Islamic thing off. He was like the founding father of the whole shebang. Now, we don't know a great deal about Abraham, but I probably know just a little bit more about him than maybe you do. Now, Abraham's father was a creator of idols. Now, I'm not sure which gods these idols represented, but probably things like Baal, who was he was a big deal back in those days, and he was represented by a calf. We'll go into that when we start talking about Moses and the golden calf. But yeah, so he would have made, I don't know, maybe he made idols of the Persian god Mithras, all sorts, And Abraham, somehow or other, he got it into his head that all this was nonsense, all these multiple gods. So he smashed all his father's homemade idols, you know. Probably the father was highly pissed off, but Abraham went ahead and did it. And somehow or other he'd got it into his head that there was just one God, a mono-God. Now, he wasn't original. There were, there were the Zoroastrians who worshipped one God. So it's possible that Abraham got the idea of the one God from the Zoroastrians, which was another Persian religion. And it's still going to this day, as a matter of fact. There are still thousands of Zoroastrians. Now, Abraham, well, actually he was actually born, I was going to say christened, that's a bit of a reach, a bit of a stretch. He was given the name Abram, not Abraham, Abram. And I'm not sure the date or anything like that, but he married a woman called Sarah, not Sarah, Sarah. She became Sarah later on. But Sarah was barren. I'm sure you know what that means, but for the benefit of the one or two who might not, it means she was unable to bear children. So this was a real big problem because, you had to have a son to leave all your wealth to and carry on the family tradition. So now the Bible tells us, I don't believe it, but the Bible tells us that Sarah gave Abraham permission to go in unto their slave girl. They had a slave girl called Hagar. That's right, Hagar. Now, actually, the Bible doesn't call her a slave girl. The Bible calls her a bondwoman. Well, what's a bondwoman? It's a girl who's been sold by her father into slavery. So Abraham rapes his slave girl, and as a result, the girl produces a boy called Ishmael. Now, as it happens, we'll go into this later on, but Ishmael becomes the founder of the Arabic religions, as we know them, Islamic religions. Yeah, well, I'm back. Look, I've just bought myself a guitar. It cost me $70 at Aldi. So I'm guessing, but this is probably the Stradivarius of guitars. And at age 74, I'm going to learn to play the guitar, left-handed. So eat your heart out, Paul McCartney. Jimi Hendrix can't eat his heart out because he's dead, but they're the two most famous left-handed guitar players that I'm aware of. You might, okay, I understand. I know I've shocked you. You thought I was a teenager. No, I'm 74 years old, and I'm going to learn to play the guitar. I'll give you a sort of a progress report as we go along. But for now, where were we? Oh yes, that's right. We were talking about Abraham. Now, at age 90, Sarah, God decided to unfasten Sarah's womb. That's the way it's described in the Bible. God unfastens Sarah's womb. Abraham himself is heading towards 100 years old. Sarah is 90 and she becomes pregnant, would you believe? And she gives birth to her son, and he is named Isaac. And now this we come to the part of the story that you've probably heard of. But before I tell you that, Sarah then becomes jealous of Ishmael, the son, illegitimate son really, the son that came about as a result of Abraham raping Hagar, his slave girl. And Sarah instructs Abraham to send Hagar and Ishmael into the desert to die. But he doesn't die, neither of them die, as a matter of fact. And Ishmael goes on to become the father of the Arabic tribes that we've had a few problems with one way or another. But there's some confusion, and I don't know the answer to this. You know, I don't know about which son was which, but I'm talking about the Bible. I'm sure you've heard of it. Now we come to the bit you know about, where God instructs Abraham. By the way, by now God has told Abraham that his new name is Abraham, and Sarah is now called Sarah. Don't ask me why. God instructs Abraham to drag Isaac up a mountain and to sacrifice his beloved son in order to prove his faith in God. You all know that story. That's the one bit about Abraham everybody remembers. But I ask you this: what kind of a monstrous, disgusting, vile, hideous and ghastly deity instructs a loving father to murder his own son just to prove his faith in God? I bet you haven't thought about that. You know, like Christians and Jews, they just read the Bible. Well, some of them do. Most Jews do, but few Christians do. But they don't stop to consider what's behind it all and what it really means. What kind of a disgusting, ghastly, revolting, sadistic deity instructs a father to slaughter his son just to prove his faith in this unbelievably vile deity? But anyway, look, fortune shone on Abraham and Isaac, because God said, okay, Abraham, you proved just how faithful and loyal you are. Instead of slitting your son's throat, I'll settle for a ram, or it might have been a lamb, I can't remember. So Abraham gets his knife and cuts the throat of a ram. And this is the other question I ask. We're talking here about the force, the power that created the universe, and yet Bible believers are so dumb and so dim-witted. They believe that this major force, I mean, it's indescribable what kind of a force would be required to create a universe, gets his rocks off by watching an animal having its throat slit. Think about it. Just for once in your lives, think about it. I'll give you a bit of a break here. We'll go somewhere else for the rest of the story. I might carry on playing my guitar.